Michael, a Mercedes guy. We're working on a 123 wagon here. It does not have air conditioning. So the alternator replacement is much easier and easier for you folks to see, because we really don't need to jack the car up because there's no big York compressor here. So anytime you're going to do anything electrical, which is we're replacing this alternator, you don't take any chances. You disconnect the ground cable from the battery. Why the ground cable? You don't want to be disconnecting the positive cable because you can accidentally touch here to a ground and it can damage parts. So the negative one is the one you want. You get that turned so it can't accidentally touch. Now we know we're safe. And make a little more room here. And look at that. That popped right out of there. So that tells me that hole's stripped. We'll deal with that later. Okay. Now, the alternator itself. So, this type of adjuster, or the star type of adjuster, anytime you're adjusting your alternator, you want to loosen the bottom bolt down here. Otherwise, you can bend this, or if it's a star adjuster, you can break off the points on the star. But we're going to do a removal, so we're going to be disconnecting parts here. Now, this electrical has this little hold down wire that you want to keep track of. You don't want to lose that. Wheel your terminal back and forth carefully. Yeah, I'm just doing an inspection here while you're at it. Looks good. I'm going to kink that out of the way. Okay, then we'll start pulling parts off. Okay, on this model it's easier to remove the bracket with the alternator. So the bolt that holds it on, you take that bolt out. You don't even have to hold this nut because it's welded to the bracket. Okay, we got that upper one off. Now we're gonna do the lower one, and it's a welded on threaded piece of tubing on the bracket, so we don't have to worry about holding it, about holding the nut, that is. We're going to be replacing both drive belts, alternator and power steering pump. So while I'm waiting for some pressure to build up on my air compressor, to use my air wrench, we're going to go ahead and loosen that. Now this is the adjuster right here. So the power steering pump actually, there's this one you must loosen and this one you must loosen, and then really back off on the adjuster right here. So isn't quite room enough to get a ratchet end wrench in there, but over here there's plenty of room. Okay, that's loose. And there's my wrench. Now that you want to really back off that 13. And of course the hose is just about right. I'm trying to figure out which way it is. There we go. Boy, that is jammed in there. That's loose. That's loose. Oh, we do have a third bolt. It's down in here. That affixes these. Come around this way. And it's clear down there. And let's see if I can get a ratchet and wrench on there from below. And there we go. And the bolt is turning. So we need another ratchet in there with a 13 on it. There we go. Loosen that one. Now it's loose. Okay. Let's see if we can get this belt off yet. And there's just not quite enough room, of course. We've got to loosen that adjuster bolt some more. I'm trying to keep from not letting the bolt come clear out of the threaded holder down there, because then it's harder to get it back going again. There we go. Now, first thing we want to do is check and see that our replacement belt is proper. 1145. 1145. So we've got the correct belt. Now, we're not going to put that on until we replace the alternator belt. Because it has to go on first. I don't know if you caught how I did that. I was forcing the belt off and I turned the pulley backwards and ran the belt off. Now, how do you check if a belt is bad? You turn it backwards like this and pinch it, and look at that. This thing was ready to fail because it should not crack. A new belt, you can pinch it backwards and it does not crack. So, here's our alternator belt. Looks like the correct one. 13 by 1030. So we're all set. Okay, now I'm going to use my air wrench on that. Just to save a little elbow grease here. Wrong way. Come on. That is tight in the bore. There we go. Fortunately, no air conditioner. It makes life so much easier here. Okay, we have it out. Now, next thing before we get any further is to check our replacement and make sure of a couple things. It's got the proper mounting, and let's check the pulley offset. So the easiest way to do that is just to turn one around and just push it up so the pulley is touching the bracket, Okay, now notice our bracket. We want to make sure that the connectors are oriented the same. If they aren't, you can undo these screws and rotate the back half to the front half, but we don't have to do that, obviously. However, you notice this one here is missing this fastener wire, and there is a divot for it. So we need to take that out of there and give it a little tweak to make it a little tighter and get that thing installed, because that helps hold on the connector with engine vibration. Okay, it's much harder to put on when that thing's in the car. So we're ready to swap brackets here. And this is a strange setup because the adjuster rod is welded to the head of this bolt. So, how do you get the bolt out? Why does Mercedes do this? I'm not quite sure. But what you have to do is completely remove this nut adjuster, and it looks like it has forever threads. Then you can swing it up and remove it. Now, I've actually seen people bend these brackets in order to get it out. You don't have to do that, and plus it weakens it. So we're all set there, and be sure you orient it the same. And you've got this spacer in there. You want to make sure that that's tight. You may have to add a washer if it's not tight. This is tight. And you have just enough room to get that nut on. Now, you want to put some lubrication on here. Okay, we don't want to tighten that very tight because we want to be able to adjust it. And you need to run down both sides. There we go. Because we're putting on a new belt. So we need this really freed up. There we go. Now, so for installation, you want this close to this, so we can get the belt on. And we do not want to run the nut off of the adjuster. So we're ready to go there. And we have 2 bolts, and on the 123s they are the same. However, look at one thing. This washer is thinner than this washer. So this is mounting to aluminum. So I'm going to put that thicker washer down here on this one, and the thinner washer is on to steel. So you put this one in first. Now, mind you, if you've got an AC car, you're doing this whole thing from below. You have to jack up your car and put jack stands, and when you put your jack stands in, you then shake the heck out of the car and try to get it to fall down, because you want it falling down when you are not under the car. So very important. Okay, notice that these bolts have some wear. Both of them do. It's making it hard to get the bolt in. So just take your bench grinder and just hit this ridge a little bit and make life easier. Okay, to get that bottom bolt in, it can be kind of an effort. So I've got a punch here, tapered punch, that I'm going to put in from the front. That way I can start to get that lined up much better. There we go. Now I'm not fighting the weight of the alternator, and I can jiggle it around more to get the bolt in. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to tighten that bolt. You only tighten that when the belt is adjusted. Okay, now we have our upper bolt, I should say, but we're not going to put the bolt in until we put the belt on. Makes it so much easier. Okay, I'm putting on the bottom belt, going for the alternator, and of course you you want to keep track of which pulleys are which, especially on this one, because it has basically an extra pulley that's not used because there's no air conditioning compressor. So I need to get that all the way back. Okay, once you get the belt on that bottom pulley and the water pump pulley, then you can put this bolt in. And you put it in almost all the way, but you don't tighten it fully tight until you have your adjustment made here. So I'll get my handy ear wrench here. Okay, how tight should a belt be? The general rule of thumb is a little tighter than you can turn the pulley. I can just start to turn that pulley. So, because it's a new belt, I want it a little bit tighter than that. And do know, with new belts, within 20-30 miles, you need to readjust them. I can still start to turn that pulley. Now I can't. So I just started to where I can't. So I'm going to give it about a revolution. And that's the adjustment. Then I can tighten these two bolts, the one for the bracket and the one at the bottom, and hook up the alternator. Okay, how tight do you make your power steering belt? Well, you should be able to push on it and get some deflection. Using this adjuster, you can tighten it. Another way too is to clockwise put on that. Okay, it's not slipping in the belt. And I've slowly tightened it to where it just does not slip in the belt. So I'm going to add one turn to the bolt. But keep in mind that in 20-30 miles, you need to readjust this. So that's proper tightness. Then you adjust, then you tighten 1, 2, 3 bolts. And when you adjust, you need to loosen those 3, or you'll be just fighting yourself with the adjuster.